Hi guys, Scott Woodward with you to talk about this fascinating test match between England and Australia to be played on Sunday in Melbourne at AAMI. And as far as the ground is concerned, all favours are in with the Australian side, certainly based on the players from the Melbourne Storm and based on history of internationals being played down in Melbourne. Both these teams are coming from rock-bottom performances last weekend, and it's going to be really interesting to see what changes the coaches actually make on the day and which team can lift to get the 2 points here. And certainly it's almost a sudden death game for Australia, and if England can win this game, they will basically assure themselves of a finals berth. But whoever wins this game, we think will probably definitely be playing New Zealand in the final. As far as the stats go for the game, Australia haven't lost a consecutive test match since 1978, and they haven't been defeated by England since 1995. So you can see there's a massive amount of pressure here on coach Tim Sheens and also captain Cam Smith. And Cam Smith, for one, is one of those Australian players that need to lift. His work rate has been as wonderful as ever, and his leadership is as wonderful as ever, but he has lost that spring in his step. And let me say, it's been missing since the last State of Origin game. The yards that he's been making has been gradually declining since the last State of Origin game. And it's not because he's old, it's not because he's injured, it's just because he's had too much football. And I really would love to see him have a rest. I'd like to see him rested for the next game against Samoa and Robbie Farah come on and play. Now, look, while Robbie Farah has been selected for this game on the bench for Australia, I'll be very surprised if, in fact, he does play. If you look at the bench and you look at Cordner, Farah, Gura, Hoffman, there's no big guys there at all. And we've only got one big man in the side, Aaron Wood, who is the only genuine prop in the side. We commented about this last week and said it was the worst Australian team that I've seen in memory, and New Zealand trounced them and put 30 points on them. And as far as the forwards are concerned, while the selected side is not much better in terms of size, it's a better configuration. The coaches started Corey Parker this week, and why he played him off the bench last week, I don't know. He's an 80-minute player, and I think he's Australia's best forward. If we leave Cam Smith out of contention, we don't count a hooker as a forward, which is probably a silly statement. But as far as forwards are concerned, Corey Parker is absolutely world class, and he's in his favourite position now at lock. I really hope he stays lock and they don't move him up as a prop forward at some stage. So at Corey Parker lock, that allows Greg Bird to go in and play his favourite position on the left-hand side on the edge, where he's very dangerous and he can do some damage, and he also adds a little bit of grunt down that side. And you have Bo Scott on the right side, another tough guy. So we've got two tough prop guys here. Now, what's interesting is that Greg Bird has come in for Ryan Hoffman, and I think that's a marked improvement. I questioned the selection of Ryan Hoffman last week, and he had a shocker, and quite frankly, I'm surprised to see him still in the side, and I don't know where the coach is going to play him. He's selected at 17, and I can't see him. I mean, both Greg Bird and Bo Scott are long-minute players, and so is Ryan Hoffman. So I don't know why he's on the bench. He's not a bench-type player, and unless the coach is planning to play him in the middle, which I think he should have probably done for the last 2 or 3 years for the Melbourne Storm. He's not an edge player. He dives with the ball all the time, but he'll hit the line hard, and he's got a very high work rate. And while he's not a big man, he will do very well if they play him in the middle. And if he is going to play, I would suspect that that's where he will play. I'm expecting Robbie Farah to drop out of this side in place of the big man, David Klemmer. He hasn't been selected, but this side, Australia, is clearly lacking big men. And David Klemmer is one of the promising young props in the NRL, and I expect him to get his first game on Sunday and come into this side. He'll come in for either Robbie Farah or Ryan Hoffman. I can't see them replacing Boyd Cordner or Aidan Gura. They both are world-class players, and they should be. Look, Boyd Cordner comes into this side. I don't know why he wasn't in the side last week. To have Boyd Cordner there, once again, he's also a big-minute player, and he's not the guy that I would want coming off the bench. But they are limited for players with injuries, and he certainly should be in the top 17 beyond any doubt. So in terms of configuration-wise, I think the back three is a lot better looking for Australia this week. It's no better looking up front. We've got two nice guys, Aaron Woods and Sam Thaiday. Now, while they might look big and tough, they're the sort of guys that could get bashed up by their grandmother. I don't think they're going to hurt anybody. And Sam Thaiday is if you had a little quiet word to him at a bar through the week and said to him, "Do you want to play prop?" I bet you he would tell you that he doesn't like playing prop, and so he shouldn't. He's an edge second row player. That's where his best football has been, and that's where he should be. I would have had him coming off the bench playing in the back row if I was in charge of this side. He's not a starting prop forward, and he was ineffective last week for Australia. The Kiwi big men just ran right over top of him, and in fact roughshod over the Australian side. They were terrible. Look, the good news is they can't go any worse, and I've got no doubt that they will aim up, and you'll see them go much better this week. And let me say, they have to. The other big news for this team, and I'm doing this preview on a Tuesday night, so obviously you'll probably be reading about some changes in the press. So let me be first have a little crack what I think will happen. I've already told you that I think either Robbie Farah or Ryan Hoffman will come out and be replaced by David Klemmer, which will give another big man to come in. Look, ideally I would start with Klemmer, but he'll come in off the bench, I would think. But in the halves, I don't think Daly Cherry Evans will come up. My mail from the camp is that he hasn't been training, and he's got no chance of playing. So unless there's a miracle late in the week, I don't think Daly Cherry Evans will play, and I think we'll see Ben Hunt come on for his first game for Australia. Now, the good news for Ben Hunt is that I think his weakness is that he struggles on tackle 5 options, and that's how he was all year with Brisbane. Now, he was outstanding for line break assists and try assists and all the nice things you like to get from your halfback. He was great with all that. But he was not good with tackle 5 options. He was often out of place and didn't know where he was and had to do some rush kicks. Now, the good news for Ben is that he doesn't have to worry about that in this side. He's got the best in the business right alongside of him in Cooper Cronk. Cooper will be calling the shots and Cooper will be taking the tactical kicks. And all Ben has to do is run. And that's what he does well. Run, make half breaks, make breaks, and get the ball away to guys like Greg Inglis coming through. And I tell you what, I would really fancy my chances of Ben Hunt getting around England's Matty Smith. I think he's very susceptible in defence, and in fact, I commented last week that I had some doubts about Matty Smith at international level. And let me tell you, from what we saw last week, there is no doubts anymore. He's not an international halfback. And, while they might have many alternatives at this stage of the tour, I would like to see Matty Smith again, and I hope he can prove me wrong, but he had no idea on his 5th tackle options. He just got the kicks and put them up in the air, despite the Channel 9 commentator saying his kicks have been good. I don't know what game he was watching. He put no pressure at all on the fullback, and I think England are going to really struggle if they rely on Matty Smith for the tactical kicks. And he didn't do anything at attack, and his defence is very suspect. Missed a lot of bad tackles in this Test match last week. Gareth Widdop, who'll be playing alongside of him as a 6th, certainly he is the senior player in that side, and I think he should do all the kicks, he should do all the calls, which is not good when you've got a halfback coming in for his 2nd game for his country. You'd like him to shoulder a lot of that workload, but quite frankly, he's not up to it, and Gareth Widdop, I think, has to take that responsibility. I was surprised that England have stayed with the same side. Sadly, their captain and best forward, Sean O'Loughlin, my mail is that he is really struggling and he's not going to come up, and if he does play, he won't be 100% right. So that's a massive out for England, losing the best forward in Sean O'Loughlin. Not only that, he's their best leader. It's probably a little bit unfair to James Graham to say that, but he's in James Graham's class, and so that'll give you an idea of the loss that they've got. Look, England have got a massive opportunity here to knock Australia off. Australia have got a very ordinary forward pack, and England have got a big forward pack, but we never saw them last week. They were terrible, and they just got, even though they actually ended up getting the points, They let 5 tries in against a minnow team in Samoa, and that's just ridiculous. Look, I know it was hot. I know some of the players were struggling with the flu, and the England players didn't handle the heat well, but it was a test match, and we have to judge it how we saw it, and they were totally ineffective, the forwards. They were awful. There was no organisation in the halves, and it was only just through the goal kicking of Gareth Widdop that got them home. So they need to absolutely improve to 100% if they're going to be competitive against Australia here. I think the best way for them to be competitive is they need to have their best 3 forwards starting, and I definitely would be starting with the 2 Burgess brothers, George and the underrated Tom Burgess. I think he's as good as any prop forward in the business, and I would be starting with Tom and George, and I'd be playing James Graham at lock forward. He would come in and be my lock forward beyond any doubt. And then you've got your 3 big prominent men there starting the game, and they need to get off to a flyer here against Australia, and they need to sustain it for 80 minutes because you know Australia will be revved up. Look, they had some excuses last week. They went awful, but they had some excuses. They lost 50% of their spine, Australia. They lost Greg Inglis and they lost Daly Cherry Evans. And unfortunately, Dylan Walker come on and played fullback, and he's not a fullback. But this week, the coach has got it right, and he's got Sion Matiata. And I know I pronounce that wrongly, but nearly everybody does. But you know who I'm talking about. He's a brilliant young kid. Look, I know he's only 18. I think I probably would have played Johnston in place of him, but still, this is an incredible young kid, and he's got a wonderful future, and he'll do a good job on the wing. But importantly, he can come on and play fullback if something does happen to Greg Inglis, and it's a much better succession plan for Australia. So this is a much better looking, balanced Australia side than last week for me, and clearly they did lose 50% of their spine, and obviously that's not going to happen again. And I think you'll find that Cam Smith won't allow the forwards to get run over like they did last week either. And I'm expecting to see a marked improvement from Cam Smith. Let me say we need to see a marked improvement from Cam Smith. He's one of the greatest players of all time, and what we've seen of him in the last 6 months is not what we know from the great man. And I think we'll see him dig in there, and I think he'll get the team behind him, and I expect Australia to go on and win this game pretty comfortably. Not just because of what we've seen in past years, but because of what I saw from England last week. Before last week, I really thought England had a shot of winning the 4 nations based on the fact that Australia were going to be under strength, and in fact even New Zealand are under strength. And you wouldn't have known that the way New Zealand played last week. They just went sensational, and they are only going to get better, particularly as in they get their hooker back this week. So for me, I think England are going to struggle, particularly if Sean O'Loughlin doesn't turn up. I'm expecting Matty Smith to have another tough game in this game, and I'd like to see what the coach does with Tom Burgess. Is he going to keep him exactly how it was last week, or is he going to do something a little bit proactive and try and rattle Australia early? I said it last week and I'll say it again. I would have played Sam Tompkins in the forwards in place of Matty Smith and had Sam Tompkins and Gareth Widdop. They are the 2 best ball players in the England side, and I would have had them both in the halves, and I would have brought in the very exciting Hardiker at fullback, who we haven't seen at international level in Australia, and I was really looking forward to seeing him play, and that's who I would have had as my fullback. He's been outstanding in England this year in Super League. Also, I thought that the very exciting Joe Burgess, the try-scoring freak, might have been a chance to come on and play on the wing in place of Josh Charnley. Now, I can only imagine that he normally plays on the left side and Charnley plays on the right side, so the coach probably wants to play the guys on their right club sides, and that's fair enough, so I'm not going to knock that. And let me say, look, I've got an opinion of Josh Charnley. I think he goes okay, and obviously Ryan Hall is a world-class winger, and he has to stay where he is, and he shouldn't move. So, look, it's a very, very good England side. I was highly disappointed in them last week. They had some excuses with the heat. They had some excuses with their captain being out. And we can only expect that they'll go a lot better this week. I really think that this will be a terrific game to watch, because I know both teams were disappointed in how they went last week, and I know that they'll rise to a new level for this game. They are always great games, and I'm sure this will be on Sunday. I expect Australia to win by around about 2 tries. I think about my ratings have them about 1 3/4 tries better than England. But to be honest, I haven't seen an Australian side like this. And if by some chance I've got it wrong and David Clemmer doesn't come into this side, then I give England a wonderful chance in this side, because there's just no big men in this side. There's no big tough men with Grunt and with Mungle in them who are going to worry England at all. So I would give England a really, really good chance. But if David Clemmer can come in and he can help Australia get some good go forward, I then would expect Cooper Cronk and also Cam Smith and Greg Inglis to control this game, and I expect that we'll see a lot of running from Ben Hunt, and he'll cause a lot of breaks and half breaks. So for me, it's Australia to win, and win pretty comfortably, and go on and play New Zealand in the final. Obviously, New Zealand are playing early in the day against Samoa, and I expect that to be a gap job, and I think New Zealand will win that game very easily indeed. There it is for me. I hope you enjoy it. I certainly know I will, and I'll talk to you next week. Cheers.